My life as a eunuch was a heartbreaking journey of sacrifice, loss, and unexpected redemption. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The day the warm laughter faded into whispers and suspicion. I stood there, heart pounding, palms sweaty. The air thick with tension. Silence fell, broken only by the sound of my breath. It was the beginning of a dark chapter. I was a boy once, innocent and full of dreams. My family was everything. My mother's gentle touch, my father's robust laughter. But fate twisted cruelly. I was thrust into a world filled with shadows. A world where I lost more than just my future. As a eunuch, my existence was filled with paradoxes. The very essence of what made me a man was stripped away, leaving behind an emptiness I couldn't comprehend. I often caught glimpses of jealousy and contempt in the eyes of those around me. Friends turned cold. I felt the sting of their silence. What was once warmth was now a dagger of isolation. I learned to navigate the narrow path of acceptance, but the price was steep. Every day was a cruel reminder of what could have been, the laughter of children in the distance, the joy of love I would never know. The ache in my chest was often unbearable. I could feel the weight of my sacrifice pushing down on me, suffocating any buds of hope that dared to bloom. Sometimes I would dream of escape. A place far away where my name was not a curse, but a symbol of strength. Only to wake up to the same cold reality. Yet, there were whisperings of change, murmurs sprawled among those who felt the weight of a broken system. Hints of rebellion danced like sparks waiting to ignite. I wondered, could I be part of something greater? Something that would not only redeem my past but reshape my future. But before I could plunge into the depths of this untold journey, a knock shattered my contemplation. A stranger's presence loomed in the doorway, eyes full of secrets. They leaned in. I know what they have planned for you. My heart raced. What could they possibly mean? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The stranger stepped into the dim light of my room, their silhouette obscure but undeniably imposing. My heart thundered in my chest as I prepared for whatever revelation was to come. You need to listen, they urged, their voice a low whisper that barely cut through the fear swirling within me. Time is running out. That I dared to take a breath, caught off guard by the urgency in their eyes. What do you mean? Who sent you? I asked, the questions tumbling out like a waterfall, each one heavy with the weight of my uncertainty. They want to silence you. The stranger's voice trembled as they leaned closer, the faint flicker of hope battling against the shadows. You are not what they see, you are much more. You have something they fear. What could that possibly be? I fell against the edge of my bed, the truth of my life so far feeling like a heavy chain around my neck. I am just nothing. The words slipped from me, more like a confession than a statement, projecting every doubt that had once consumed me. The stranger's gaze softened, a flicker of compassion lighting up the dim atmosphere. You hold the stories of many, you are a vessel of truth. They hesitated, and for a heartbeat, I caught a glimpse of their own struggle mirrored in their eyes. They need you to be quiet, but it's your voice that can inspire change. Could it be that my pain had a purpose? Hope flared briefly in my chest, only to be extinguished by the reality of my predicament. I can't even help myself, I murmured. What good is my voice? A sudden realization struck me. His stranger knew not only of my struggles but of a deeper conflict brewing around us, one that encompassed others like me. But why was this person reaching out? They seemed on the edge of revelation, as if a dam had finally broken inside them. They are planning to drive you out, they continued, urgency creeping back into their voice. A purge of anyone who threatens their power. They need to maintain control, and people like you are all that stands in their way. The word sent icy fingers down my spine. I thought of the people I had known, the friends I'd lost to the tides of suspicion and fear. But I am no threat. I am just trying to survive, I protested weakly, the implications of their message crystallizing in my mind like shards of ice. Sensing my doubt, the stranger stepped forward, fervor igniting their voice. You could be more than that. If you gather others, if you inspire them to rise, change can flourish in the ashes of your suffering. Fear wrestled with a reluctant spark of resolve within me. What if I could turn the tides? Could I bridge the gap between my past despair and a new purpose? Yet, the panic of standing up against a formidable system brought a heavy fog of uncertainty clouding my thoughts. People will dismiss me. Marked as an outcast, I countered, skepticism thick in my voice. What power could a loner like me possess? The stranger reached out, taking my trembling hands into theirs. You are not alone. There are others who feel the same, they are waiting for someone to light the way. Just then, a noise echoed outside. The sound of hushed voices grew louder, unease mounting within me. They can't know I am here, I whispered frantically, my heart racing at the thought of being discovered. The last thing I wanted was to draw attention to myself again. Trust me, the stranger said, their grip firm. You can help them, but you must first embrace who you are, the truth you carry. I felt the weight of their words cascade over me, and for a fleeting moment, I dared to visualize what it might be like to stand shoulder to shoulder with others, to channel our pain into something greater. But what if I can't? What if I fall? Then at least you'll know you tried, they replied with a fierce glint in their eyes. When the time comes, you must choose. And just as I opened my mouth to respond, a loud crash resonated outside my door. The moment shattered, reverberating through the very marrow of my bones as the door flew open and shadows flooded the room. The last thing I caught was the stranger's shocked expression. Before all clarity dissolved into chaos. As figures lunged towards us, confusion blanketed my thoughts. In that split second, I realized I was being pulled into a struggle that could redefine my existence if only I could find the strength to take the leap. The vision of rebellion swirled just a breath away, but first, I had to survive. In the instant the shadows sprang forth, I felt the world tilt on its axis. Chaos erupted around me, shouts mingling with the clatter of boots on the floorboards and the clanging of metal, a wild symphony of conflict that drew closer with every heartbeat. My lungs tightened. I had been offered a glimpse of hope, only to find it overshadowed by the impending threat of violence. Before I could fully comprehend what was happening, my thoughts flickered back to the stranger. Where were they? Had they been captured, or was it me who needed to worry? The question burned insistently at the back of my mind as the chaos surged like a tidal wave. I stumbled back against the edge of my bed, fingertips brushing the wooden surface, searching for anything that could lend me courage. Instead, I grasped the only object in reach, an old, rusted lamp. It felt heavy and grounding in my hand, a small, tangible anchor in the storm swirling around me. Two figures crashed into the room, their faces shadowed under hoods, the tension radiating from them overwhelming. I recognized their uniforms, the ominous insignia they wore was a brand of oppression. They served the very system that had kept me shackled in fear for longer than I could remember. Get her. One of them barked, and suddenly, their cold eyes were fixated on me, drinking in the sight of my confusion and fear. In that moment, time slowed, and my heart sank like a stone. I had to move, to act, yet the weight of my thoughts paralyzed me. Then my fingers tightened around the lamp, adrenaline surging through my veins as I caught the fleeting image of courage reflected in the dim light. Just as one of them lunged forward, I swung the lamp, the metal crashing against the shoulder of the attacker. A flash of pain ignited, but it was the sudden spark in their eyes' betrayal, surprise that gave me a moment to slip past them, heart pounding with the wild rhythm of flight that I darted into the hallway, barely aware of the chaotic escalation unfolding behind me. For a split second, the world seemed to collapse into an encapsulated moment of sheer panic. But then, the thought of survival overtook my fear. I needed to find the stranger. They had reached into the depths of my despair and ignited a flicker of hope, and now, I felt an inexplicable connection to them. They believed in something greater, and perhaps, even in me. With a clarity born of sheer need, I rushed through the maze of hallways, ears straining for any sound that may lead me to safety or the stranger. Shadows danced across the walls, my breath escaping in shallow gasps, mingling with adrenaline. Time felt elastic, every second stretching as I rounded corners that seemed all too familiar yet foreign in light of the chase. "Where are you?" I gasped, both to myself and to the unseen ally that had faded into the night. Just as I approached the stairwell that spiraled towards the exit, a voice broke through the cacophony, high-pitched and shrill, "Help! Someone, please!" It was a child, terrified, lost in the chaos. My heart tightened. Against the unforgiving pulse of self-preservation, I was drawn back by a force greater than fear. Even in this moment of terror, my compassion trumped my instinct to flee. I had to help them. The shrieks echoed again, this time accompanied by a heavy thud, the sound of something large and menacing advancing toward the child. I sprinted towards the sound, praying that I wouldn't find devastation awaiting me. As I turned the corner, I came face to face with a small figure pressed against the wall, a boy of no more than 10, wide eyes glistening with tears. "Please don't hurt me," he whimpered, clutching an old stuffed toy as if it were a lifeline. "Shoo," I whispered urgently, kneeling down to his level, drawing on every ounce of calm I had left. "I'm not here to hurt you. We need to go now," Mama said to hide. He cried, shaking, glancing over my shoulder as the echo of heavy footsteps thundered closer. "Your mama is looking for you, I promise. We can find her together," I said, my voice firm and unwavering. I reached out, and after a moment of hesitation, he took my hand, his grip fragile but filled with trust. Moving swiftly towards the staircase, I felt the chill of impending danger behind us, a relentless storm threatening to widen between us and safety. "Stay close to me," I urged, urging the boy forward. As we scampered toward the exit, dread seeped in. My mind tormented me with the knowledge that those who pursued me had little care for the innocent. And yet, within the shadows, flickers of hope began to kindle as the child's presence renewed a sense of purpose within me, but just as we reached the doorway, an opposing force shoved the door open with an army of shadows spilling into our path. Desperation filled my lungs as I gripped the boy's hand tighter. "Run!" I shouted, pushing him ahead of me, my instincts screaming to sacrifice myself for the sake of his survival. Then a voice rose above the chaos, firm and commanding. "Stop!" I turned towards the sound, and through the panic, I recognized the silhouette. It was the stranger, a fierce determination shining through the turmoil, but obstacles obscured the path between us. Their presence was a beacon, a lifeline threading through my doubts, but would they reach me in time? Time froze as I met their gaze, holding on to the fragile hope that I could rise alongside others who dared to dream of change. The boy tugged at my hand, and our fates intertwined just as another figure charged forward, poised to strike. In that moment of impending chaos, everything coalesced into a singular truth: I might lose everything, but I had to fight for the boy, for the stranger, and for the life I was determined to reclaim. The tides were shifting, and perhaps, together, we could unleash a wave of change even amidst devastation. And then, the stranger lunged forward, a fierce protective instinct igniting within them, as my world slipped into darkness and uncertainty loomed ever closer. The echoes of commotion faded as darkness engulfed me, a heavy blanket smothering any remnants of light. I felt the world dissolve into a muffled void, each sound swallowed beneath a weight I couldn't lift. My mind raced, desperately clinging to the fleeting image of the stranger, off their unwavering resolve and the hope they embodied. It was a fragile flame flickering against a gale, and I yearned to fan its light into a blaze. Suddenly, reality cracked open again, an inexorable pain unraveling in my side, pulling me back into consciousness. The world sharpened into focus, the scent of dust and blood invaded my senses, mingling with the fear that gripped me like a vice. I struggled to sit up, but every movement shot jolts of agony through me. "Stay still," a voice commanded with urgency. It was familiar. The stranger. I turned my head slowly, hoping to decipher the hazy contours of their face through the fog of confusion. Just inches away, their features came into view, determination etched into every line. They were bruised, cuts streaked across their skin like badges of honor, but their eyes were fierce and focused. What happened? I croaked, my throat dry and raspy, full of unanswered questions. My heart hammered in my chest as I recalled the moments before darkness took Meth Boy's fragile hand in mine, their urgent pull away from danger. Had he escaped? Don't worry about that now, the stranger urged, inspecting my injuries, their fingers skillfully assessing the damage. You took a hit. We need to move now. A shiver lanced through me, spreading from my wound. But the boy, I tried to save him. My voice trembled as the gravity of my actions sank in. Had I chosen wrong? I had acted on instinct, driven by empathy, but now the taste of failure hung bitterly on my tongue. Listen, the stranger said, their voice dropping to a soothing whisper, you did what you could. Right now, he's safe. I promise you. He found help. Relief washed over me, mingled with doubt. Are you sure? I left him. The weight of what I had barely executed hung over me like a storm cloud, dark and omnipresent. They're taking shelter in a safe zone. This fight isn't just ours anymore, it's about all of them, the children, the families. We're in a larger battle, one that stretches beyond this moment. The stranger paused, urgency seeping back into their tone. But we must keep moving. With a shaky breath, I nodded, determination igniting within me once more. Where do we go? Follow me. There's a place not far from here, a hidden route outside the city. We can regroup and formulate a plan to reach the safe houses. They extended a hand, the fire in their gaze explicit and compelling. Pushing through the pain, I took their hand, allowing their strength to guide me as I stumbled to my feet. Every step sent jolts through my body, but I fought against the tendrils of doubt, clinging to the hope I had found in their unwavering belief. Together, we made our way through the labyrinth of shadows and debris. My surroundings flickered in and out, disorienting glimpses of shattered glass and flickering lights that illuminated the despair enveloping us. Yet, amid the desolation, small acts of kindness flickered like fragile stars. I noticed one of the uniformed enforcers set down their weapon to help an elder trapped beneath a fallen beam, an unexpected gesture that pierced through my darkness. Others ignored the chaos to attend to the wounded, clinging to the remnants of compassion in a world devoid of it. Hope bloomed in those moments, fragile yet resolute. Perhaps we weren't as alone as we thought. Maybe within this tumult, kindness could germinate, blossom, and thrive, sprouting within hearts hardened by struggle. As we precariously navigated through the wreckage, the stranger paused, their head tilting slightly as if catching a whisper from the wind. We have to be quick. Movement has drawn attention. Just as I opened my mouth to respond, a shout rang out, harsh and echoing through the narrow alleyway. There. They're over there. My heart raced, adrenaline surging as I realized the ramifications of being seen. Run! I yelled instinctively, pulling on the stranger's arm. They hesitated for a fraction of a second, as concern twisted their brow. We need a plan. No time. We've got to move. And we did, breaking into a sprint, feet pounding against the hard ground amidst the wails of pursuit echoing behind us. The world closed in, a dangerous carousel of sound and shadows. As my chest heaved, a wild mix of fear and resolve surged within me. We were alive, and we were together, but a sobering thought wormed its way into the forefront of my mind. What would happen if we didn't make it? Could we be the flicker of change we so desperately sought, or merely cogs in a larger machine? Just as I cast one backward glance, catching sight of the grim faces of our pursuers, I felt a stabbing pain suddenly grip my side, sharper than before. I stumbled, stumbling against the brick wall, a cry escaping my lips even as I struggled to stay upright. Get up. We have to keep moving. The stranger urged, their own body taut with panic, but something darker flickered in their eyes. And that heartbeat of hesitation, the tendrils of uncertainty unfurled within me. Beneath the weight of anguish, I grappled with a startling realization: my fate was not merely entangled with the strangers. In this relentless storm, I had begun to carry the weight of all those we sought to save. But would it be enough? As darkness clawed at my vision, I fought against the pull of despair despite impending doom. It was then that I caught sight of a glimmering unexpected flash of light amidst the encroaching shadows. And in that moment, frozen between hope and fear, I understood, our struggles were just beginning. The moment froze, the world around us bathed in a surreal haze. I felt the adrenaline coursing through my veins, amplifying each heartbeat. I swallowed hard against the pain gnawing at my side, knowing that giving in would mean giving up. The stranger's voice echoed faintly through my haze, urgency lacing every syllable as if the weight of not just our fates, but the futures of countless others rested upon us. Look, there. They pointed ahead, where the flickering light seemed both a promise and a trap. My heart clenched instinctively, a haunting uncertainty shadowed the glow, teasing the idea of hopeful sanctuary but perhaps leading us into greater peril. Can you make it? The stranger questioned, tension thrumming within their build. They regarded me with a fierce protectiveness, their concern undermined by a determined resolve. The sight of their battered face was both a comfort and a weight. I forced myself to nod, drawing on every ounce of strength left in me. We can't stop now. With tentative steps propelled by the urgency of our plight, we surged toward the flicker, the specter of hope driving us forward. But as we ran, shadows loomed behind us, dark reminders of the consequences of our choices. Each breath was a painful reminder of what might lie ahead, who we may never see again. The light grew clearer, transforming into a doorway, a frail veil of safety thickly draped over desperation. It stood ajar, an invitation from the unknown, and I grasped the stranger's hand tighter, needing that connection, that shared sense of purpose. We crossed the threshold, hearts pounding in sync with our steps, only to be greeted by another unexpected figure. A woman, battered yet resolute, stood with a staff that glimmered as if it had been tempered by the same trials that marked her skin. Quick. She beckoned urgently, eyes darting over our shoulders toward the pursuers inching closer. In here, we followed her into a dimly lit room, the walls adorned with weathered photographs, fragments of lives once lived, now reduced to echoes of memory. The room smelled of dust and something more, a faded warmth that reminded me of home, of safety. My body collapsed against the wall, and I gasped for breath, the pain stabbing me anew. Stay low, stay quiet, the woman cautioned, her voice grounded and steady. They might not find us here. Not yet. The stranger crouched beside me, their breath coming in sharp, rhythmic puffs. You all right? They whispered, eyes scanning my face for signs of distress. That I nodded through gritted teeth, but the truth was a churning pit in my stomach. I'm not sure how much longer I can. Don't. The quiet urgency in the stranger's voice cut through my spiraling thoughts. We need you. The moment you give in to that thought, we lose everything we're fighting for. Not just you and me, but everyone. Pressing my eyes closed, I thought of the boy, the way his small hands felt wrapped securely around mine, and the desperation of his wide-brimmed eyes filled with fear. Would he be safe now? Or had he become another lost thread in a tapestry woven with anguish? The woman in the room knelt before us, her hands calloused but gentle as she examined my injury. This needs to be cleaned, she said firmly. Hold on. As she tended to my wound, I felt miraculously tethered, not completely whole, but not utterly lost either. The world might still be dark, but there were pockets of light flickering at the edges, reminders that amidst the chaos, we could still ignite hope. Tell me about that boy, the stranger urged, trying to pull my attention away from the growing agony. How old was he? What do you remember? Maybe 8 or 9, I murmured, and as I spoke, something blossomed within me. He had this grin, I recalled, a warmth blooming in the cold depths of my chest. It was like sunlight slicing through a storm. God, he was scared, but he fought to stay calm for the others. Kids are remarkable, the woman added softly, wrapping a bandage snugly around my wound. They carry hope within them, even when the world tries to snuff it out. And there it was again, that strangled combination of fear and hope tying us together. It was as if the flicker of light that drove us to this doorway had not only protected us but also forged an indelible bond through shared purpose. A sudden crash jerked us back to the pressing reality, the unmistakable sound of boots stomping and harsh shouts intruding upon our moment. Panic unfurled within me, the darkness clawing at my mind again. Quick! We can't stay here. The woman's voice was hoarse, filled with urgency. They've found out we're here. We need to move. Now, which way? The stranger shot back, glancing at me, waiting for a cue. Hope or despair, I grappled with my own turbulent thoughts, but resolutely, I shook them away. There's a back exit, the woman pointed towards a door covered in shadows, unseen until just now. It'll lead you out, but stay low and be cautious. You can't let them see you. The weight of what she asked settled heavily on my shoulders. Every instinct screamed at me to flee, but the idea of leaving off fleeing into the unknown threaded a new sense of dread into my heart. Together, I murmured, the necessity of our bond crystallizing with each word. We have to stick together, no matter what. Right, the stranger said, their eyes locking onto mine with a fierce determination that sparked something inside me. We're not leaving anyone behind. As we prepared to move once more, I felt a renewed sense of purpose stir within me amid the roaring shadows outside. But just as we crept toward the door, the room trembled with a bone-chilling echo of footsteps drawing nearer. What lay ahead remained unknown, a fresh wound to navigate, a new challenge to face. But as we stood together, hearts racing, I recognized a glimmer within me. Hope. It was fragile, yes, but it lingered, waiting for the right moment to ignite. And that was when fate made its cruel twist. As we pushed through the door, the last thing I saw was a figure silhouetted alive with intention, a man cloaked in dark shadows, eyes gleaming with malevolence, a familiar face I had thought lost forever. Run! I screamed, but reality fractured around us in an instant, the horror of recognition sinking deeper than any wound could. Somehow, amidst the chaos, it was both an opportunity and an insidious threat, and the fight for our lives was far from over. The air was electric with tension as I found myself suspended between disbelief and impending doom. The figure emerging from the shadows was not just an enemy but a specter from my pasta face I had held in memory, a truth I had buried deep beneath layers of pain. Father, I whispered, the words slipping from my lips like a desperate prayer. The stranger's hand tightened around mine, face contorting in confusion, but I couldn't pull my gaze away. This man, my father, had once been a hero in my eyes before betrayal had twisted that admiration into something unrecognizable. Don't you dare say that. He barked, voice sharp as a knife. You think you can walk away from me? After everything you've done? The words cut deeper than the wound on my side, each syllable a reminder of the abandonment that had festered in my heart. What have you done? I demanded, fury rising within me. It felt like a reckoning, forcing me to confront the unhealed scars left behind by our fractured relationship, but before he could respond, the woman who had helped us interrupted, stepping protectively in front of me. We don't have time for this. They're close. In that moment, her fierce dedication reignited the dwindling flame of hope within me. I turned to the stranger, desperate for reassurance, and found their ignited resolve mirrored in the depths of their eyes. Together, we were a fragile army against a tide of uncertainty. Father, you don't have to do this, I pleaded, stepping into the light, ready to face the ghost that had haunted me for years. You can still help us. That he shook his head, an expression of pained regret darkening his features. You're too naive. They'll never allow you to leave. Not after this. Your destiny was sealed the moment you chose to desert everything. His voice dipped into low, bitter tones. You're nothing without me, then let me show you who I've become. I shouted, my voice echoing in the tension-thick air, the resolve surging like a tidal wave. The boy's face flashed in my mind, the memory of his hopes lending me strength. I'm not afraid of you anymore, or the choices you made. We can fight this together. But as I spoke, the shifting weight of uncertainty returned, gnawing at my conviction. What if he was right? What if I couldn't escape this cycle of pain? The room felt charged with an emotion I hadn't anticipated, an intense mixture of sadness and a flickering ember of hope. Would my father choose to be the man I once believed him to be, or was I chasing shadows birthed from a fractured past? Before I could analyze the moment further, the sudden sound of thudding footsteps echoed again, louder this time, an ominous reminder that our moment of clarity was slipping away. "We need to go, now," the woman urged, grasping my arm, pulling me toward the shadowed exit. But then my father stepped closer, determination mingling with desperation. He hesitated, the turmoil within him swirling in his eyes as if he were fighting a battle against the sins of his past. "I never wanted this for you, do you understand? I never wanted to hurt you." "Then don't," I shouted back, tangled emotions threatening to drown me like an unforgiving tide. "Fight for us for once. Help me, and we can fight this together." With that, I turned, urging the stranger to move forward as the woman's grip held tight to my wrist. I had to believe there was still a chance, a moment where we could find redemption piled between the ruins of our fractured life, but just as we moved toward the exit, my father's voice rang out again, a guttural plea tainted with regret. "I'm not the man you think I am anymore. You need to leave me behind." The words grazed my heart, pulling me back for a heartbeat, an invisible thread tugging me between love and survival. This was a chance to bridge the chasm that had separated us, yet I couldn't afford to lose everything more. "Let me find you," I called back, tears stinging my eyes. "Don't let it end like this." And then, as if drawn by some unseen force, the door flew open and a swarm of dark figures flooded the room, the terrifying weight of their presence crashing into us like a wave. The room erupted into chaos, and fear clawed at my throat as the stranger shouted for us to retreat. That I turned back one last time, locking eyes with my father, the flicker of recognition mingling with disbelief passing between us, a small, painful thread woven into this tumultuous moment. He was not the monster I had made him out to be, but his choices still chained him, wrapping the last remnants of hope in darkness. "Run!" shouted the woman, urging the stranger and me onward. But as I raced to the exit, heart pounding, I couldn't help but feel the haunting finality in my father's expression, a blend of love, sadness, and the painful knowledge that I might be leaving behind the chance to reconcile. With a final glance back, fear mingled with sorrow, the past fighting against an uncertain future, and I ran, propelled by the weight of dreams and memories tangled within me. The silhouettes of our pursuers loomed closer still, and I knew that each step forward would unveil deeper layers of truth, revealing challenges that would test the very core of my spirit. And just as we threaded through the door into the blinding light beyond, I could have sworn I heard my father whisper, "You are stronger than I ever was." But would it be enough to face the shadows that awaited us outside? The horizon ahead was filled with uncertainty, a heart-wrenching cliffhanger where the end of one chapter could only signal the treacherous beginning of another. The world outside was a tempest, colors blurring into a wash of grief and chaos. Adrenaline coursed through my veins as the woman pushed me further into the dimness of an alley, her grip unyielding, yet oddly comforting. The night air felt cold against my skin, a shiver racing down my spine, leaving me acutely aware of the wound that throbbed at my side. There was no time to focus on the pain. We had escaped, at least momentarily. What the hell was that? The stranger hissed, his voice strained with urgency as we ducked behind a dumpster, breaths ragged. The woman's eyes narrowed, scanning the shadows for any sign of movement. "That was someone who should have been left in the past," she muttered, the weight of her words seeming to hang heavy between us. "That I had to try," I protested, my heart pounding a rhythm of desperation against the backdrop of distant shouts and footfalls echoing through the alleyway. The thought of my father, that fleeting moment of connection tinged with pain and understanding, flickered in my mind. A part of me owned that had long been silent, stitching to unravel the layers of his choices. "He's not the man he used to be. I can't just abandon him." The woman turned sharply, her frustration spilling over. "You don't understand the danger he brings. He's not worth your life, not anymore, but I might be able to save him." My words hung in the air, a delicate balance of hope and defiance. "He's still my father. There's still a part of him left that wants to fight." The stranger shrugged off his own fear, grabbing my shoulders as if my resolve could spark his own. "We have to focus on surviving first. Let's get away from here. We'll figure out the rest later." I nodded, but every fiber of my being screamed against leaving him behind, as if abandoning hope itself. With each step we took, the burden of unspoken words and unresolved feelings clawed at me, growing heavier. The adrenaline began to fizzle as we slipped through the narrow streets, weaving like phantoms through shadows that cloaked our escape. I could hardly process everything: the fear, the heartbreak, the revelation. Each breath I took was mingled with the memory of my father's pleading look, his voice drowning beneath the thumping of my heart. With dawn threatening to break over the horizon, we found ourselves in a small, abandoned building that had become a makeshift hideout. My body slumped against the wall, exhaustion threatening to swallow me whole. The stranger paced, worry etching his features. "Do you think they're still following us?" His voice trailed off, uncertainty lacing each syllable. The woman turned, eyes fierce yet softening. "We need to regroup. We can't keep running blind. We have to lay low and plan our next move. But we also need to talk." "About what?" the stranger snapped, brushing a hand through his disheveled hair. "About the truth." Her gaze landed on me, tenderness in her eyes that shone through the storm we had just weathered together. "You need to know what's at stake. And how everything is intertwined." My heart leaped, anticipation crashing against the walls of fear. "What do you mean?" I barely got out, sensing the shifts in the air, as if unveiling an unspeakable truth. The woman took a deep breath, her voice measured as if recalling a wound that time had yet to heal. "Your father isn't just a victim of his own choices. There are forces at work here that hold quite a stake in the choices he made. The kind that might still threaten your life, and every life we hold dear. They won't just let you walk away." Pain and fear flooded my mind like a choking tide, battling against my flickering hope. "What do you mean? Is he involved?" Her silence said more than any words ever could. The shadows around us felt heavier, alive with secrets I couldn't begin to understand. The stranger broke in, voice tight. "We need to decide how to move forward, find a way to face whatever comes next." And there it was, the realization that propelled me further down this harrowing path. My father, who had both shaped and shattered my existence, was not merely a casualty in this war. He was a player, entangled in a web of deception that was threatening to ensnare us all. Suddenly, the floorboards creaked from behind closed doors, and I felt a jolt of panic seize me. "What was that?" My voice trembled against the background noise, a gurgle of fear. "Stay quiet." The woman's voice was barely above a whisper, eyes scanning the room with a predator's precision. Before I could process her command, the door swung open, revealing a figure cloaked in darkness, the silhouette unmistakably familiar. My heart raced as a shadow emerged into the light, a spark of recognition igniting a mix of dread and longing within me. "Father." I breathed, the words slipping out once more, but this time colored with the weight of our unresolved past. His eyes met mine, and the storm of emotions surged anew. This was not the end. Just when I had grappled with leaving him behind, he had found me, Again, a fragile thread weaving between us, binding our broken stories but threatening to unravel everything I believed. "What have you done?" he asked, voice layered with urgency and pain, as if crashing through barriers of time and heartache. I realized in that moment, our stories were far from over. The paths before us would force us to confront our deepest fears and shadows that lingered. The moment hung heavy in the air, the tangible weight of my father's presence intertwining with the memories that haunted every corner of my soul. I blinked, struggling to reconcile the man who stood before me with the memories that felt like both a comfort and a curse. "What have you done?" echoed off the cracked walls, striking me harder than any blow. "Is that really how you greet your father after all this time?" he said, a wry smile attempting to break through his troubled expression. Yet, this smile held nothing of the warmth I once sought. Instead, it felt like a mask, hiding the truth beneath layers of regret and sorrow. "What are you doing here?" "We thought you were," I faltered, glancing at the woman beside me, her tension tightening like a coil ready to snap. "Thought I was what? Lost forever? Or perhaps too far gone to care?" His voice, though laced with sarcasm, broke at the edges, revealing a vulnerability I had never seen in him. This man, this warrior of my childhood dreams, now stood as a ghost of the past, a reflection of choices that rippled through time and erased the joy we could have shared. "You have no idea what's at stake," the woman interjected, her eyes darting between us with a mix of fear and resolve. They're coming for you, coming for both of you. The power of her words crashed against me, like waves battering a fragile shore. I stepped forward, a wave of defiance surging through me. Then why didn't you stay away? You should have let me go. I had to see you, he replied, voice thick with emotion. I had to know you were safe, safe. I scoffed, the anger spilling forth. You call this safe? This is a nightmare born from your choices. You brought this to my door. Silence engulfed us, a heavy fog of emotion swelling like a storm ready to burst. And yet, beneath the tide of resentment and confusion, I felt something else, an inexplicable thread of hope wrestling with the darkness that surrounded us. For a fleeting moment, his eyes softened, revealing glimpses of the father I longed for. What I did was to protect you. It was a mistake, but it was my mistake to make. They want to pull you into this world, and I can't let that happen. What are you talking about? I whispered, heart racing, each beat reverberating against the walls of fear and uncertainty. Who are they? People I owe debts to, people who will do anything to get what they want. I thought walking away would sever the ties. There was a tremor in his voice, a crack that threatened to spill forth a flood of truths. I was wrong. And now, they've come for everything I love. Then why did you return? My emotions clashed, anger battling with an overwhelming sense of longing. What do you want from me? What I want can never happen, not if they come for you. There was defeat in his admission, a sinking realization that clung to the shadows of the room. Rage bubbled up inside me, a fierce defiance against the narrative he painted of his sacrifices. I have a right to know. To understand why you chose this over me. I longed for clarity, but all I received was more fog, thick and impenetrable, wrapping around us like the darkness outside. There's so much I haven't told you, he began, but before he could finish, the distant sound of sirens pierced the air, echoing like a death knell, drawing closer. We have to move now. He commanded, urgency coloring his words. My heart raced as panic began to escalate. We can't just run. Not after everything. I deserve answers. I can't protect you from the truth, he said, stepping into my space, his eyes fierce and pleading. But I can keep you alive long enough to choose your own path. A cacophony of footfalls thudded through the building, the sound of many approaching forces sending icy tendrils of dread coiling deep within me. I stepped back, pressing against the wall, trying to ground myself in a reality that slipped like sand through my fingers. I need you to trust me, he urged. The man who once stood as a pillar now seemed desperate, fragile beneath the weight of looming danger. Please. I don't know how, I whispered, gripped by the confusion swirling. Around Meth Man before me was both protector and threat, a paradox I couldn't untangle. A sudden crash splintered the tension, shattering the moment we shared. The sealed door splintered under force, revealing dark silhouettes against the dim light. I gasped as shadows surged forward, faces obscured yet dangerously familiar, clad in darkness as thick as the night itself. Go. Now. The woman shouted, her voice cutting through the haze of panic. Without thinking, I turned to flee, driven by instinct, toward a path I didn't know. But I hesitated, casting one last glance at the father whose presence could ignite rage or love in the same beat. Our eyes locked, and in that instance, unspoken words tangled between us, knotting hope and sorrow into one. Trust me. He shouted, a plea grounding my moment of hesitation, just as I was about to choose safety over connection. But as I took my first step into the unknown, a chilling realization washed over me. While I ran from danger, I was sprinting headfirst into the very complexities that had been hidden, into the darkness he had desperately tried to shield me from. And a deep-seated terror unfurled within me. The truth might not just shatter our world, it might redefine what it meant to be a family. And as shadows pursued, one haunting question began to echo louder than the footsteps closing in: who among us would become a casualty in this intricate dance of loyalty and betrayal? The air was thick with tension as I sprinted down the corridor, the echo of pursuing footsteps weaving through the sound of my own pounding heart. Each breath felt ragged, laced with a mix of fear and a desperate need to escape not just the menacing shadows but the turmoil of emotions that had erupted in the cramped room moments earlier. As I rounded a corner, I glanced back to see my father and the woman miraculously still by my side fighting back against the encroaching darkness. The look of desperation on my father's face carved into my memory, the flesh and blood man whose youthful laughter I had once chased, now a figure lost in shadows, doing whatever he could to shield me from the repercussions of his past. That I reached the end of the hallway and skidded to a halt at a set of double doors, uncertainty bubbling in my chest. Behind me, muffled voices grew louder, urgency building within the oppressive silence. I swung open the door, heart racing, and stepped into the chilly embrace of the outside air, where a faint glimmer of dusk painted the sky in deep oranges and purples, promising the end of day but not the end of turmoil. Over here, the woman called, waving her arm toward an alleyway lined with decrepit buildings. We darted toward her, the sound of chaos behind us melding into a distant roar. We squeezed through the narrow passage, pressing ourselves against the cold stone walls, daring the night to consume our fears. Do you have a plan? I gasped, my breath hitching as we paused to catch our breath, the adrenaline still coursing through my veins. I could feel the weight of the truth hanging in the air, unspoken but pressing down heavily like the dark clouds overhead. There's a safe house not far from here, she replied, glancing around, eyes sharp and alert. We can regroup, figure out our next move. But her voice, once confident, now trembled, hinting at the uncertainty embedded in every word, a crack in the armor of control she had put on. What happens when they find us? I asked, the thought lodged in my throat like a stone. What if he's right? What if the truth can be a powerful weapon? She interrupted, her gaze fierce. But it is also a burden. The more you know, the more it could hurt you and those you love. I could see the conflict in her eyes, a silent plea to remain in the dark, despite the knowledge that it might not save us. That I couldn't shake off the feeling that we were teetering on the edge of something far greater than just escape. We were navigating the precipice of our lives, clinging to threads of safety while balancing on the razor's edge of newfound revelations. With a determination that surprised even me, I took a step back. But I need to know. If we're in danger, I can't go on living in ignorance. I felt the warmth of defiance bubbling up again, fueled by the burning desire to face this darkness head-on, to let it wash over me rather than be drowned by it. Before she could respond, a sudden noisy thump, a scuffle sounded from the entrance of the alley. My heart leaped into my throat. We had only moments before the shadows would envelop us once more. Go. The woman commanded urgently. I'll hold them off. Head to the safe house, and don't look back. No. You can't. My protest was cut short as she shoved me forward, her fierce resolve igniting a flicker of hope I desperately needed to grasp. Trust me. She repeated, echoing my father's plea from earlier, pushing me to the verge of acceptance. With one final hesitant glance back, I tore away from her grasp, my feet moving instinctively toward the next bend of the alley. At that moment, the urgency of escape drowned out every other noise: the thundering footsteps, the cries, the collisions of bodies lost in a struggle for power. I dove into the streets beyond. The unimposing buildings around me felt like a labyrinth, a distorted backdrop for the chaos that had become my life. Each turn I took blurred the line between safety and danger, between knowledge and ignorance. My mind raced, conjuring thoughts of my father and the woman, wondering if I would ever see either of them again, or if I would perish like a candle flickering in the wind. And as I stumbled into the night, stubbornly pushing through the darkness, I spotted a light flickering in the distance. Bright and hopeful, it shone through the fog of despair, a beacon calling out, guiding me towards something that felt almost real amid the turmoil. But just as I reached it, a chilling realization seized me: the shadows lurking behind had not been that far gone. A familiar face stepped out from the dark, one that I had not anticipated, a face that threatened to unravel everything I had fought for, everything I thought I had turned my back on. Did you really think you could escape your fate? It was a whisper, laced with malice and irony, holding within it the heavy burden of secrets still tightly sewn into the fabric of my life. The truth was not merely lurking, it had found me, and it bore a truth I was too unprepared to confront. With bile rising in my throat and my heart pounding urgency in my ears, I realized then that the harrowing journey for answers had just begun, and it would come with a price I was far from ready to pay. The dim light that spilled through the stained glass window cast haunting colors on the walls, illuminating a reality I had tried desperately to avoid. The stranger's words echoed in my mind. This had become bigger than just me. But just as the weight of that sank in, the realization of my father's betrayal clawed its way back. I wanted nothing more than to flee, to slip into the shadows where anger couldn't reach me. Yet, here I was, standing at the precipice of a truth I was terrified to uncover. Did you really think you could escape your fate? The voice was sickly sweet, dripping with a malevolence that turned my stomach. There he stood, a man I had spent years trying to forget, my father's closest ally in this atrocity. But this was not about him anymore. It was never just about me, either. The flickering flame of rebellion surged within, pushing me forward as I fought to regain control over a narrative that threatened to swallow me whole. Get away from me. I managed to scream, the volume of my voice surprising even myself. It surprised him too, evident in the way he hesitated for barely a second, confusion crossing his slick expression. No one is coming to save you. No one ever was, he hissed, the venom in his tone staining the air. Behind him, darkness loomed, a teetering line separating freedom from the chains that had never been fully broken. Reality collapsed around me once more. Without my companions, I felt the weight of solitude wrap around me like a suffocating shroud. Watch me. Something shifted within me as steel ran through my spine. Anger and pain had birthed something potent, a quiet ferocity that blossomed in the face of fear. This was not the moment of surrender I had imagined. It was a desperate stand against everything that had sought to diminish me. In the span of a heartbeat, I lunged forward, fueled by an adrenaline that coursed through me like wildfire. The figure before me raised a hand, but I was faster. A surge of strength propelled me, and I collided with him, pushing him backward, sending us tumbling to the ground in a cloud of dust and chaos. With the element of surprise on my side, I scrambled, finding my feet beneath me. The thrum of my heart pulsed in my ears as I turned to run, urgency propelling me forward, ever forward, plunging deeper into the yawning abyss of uncertainty beyond. It was the sting of freedom that propelled me out of the alley and into the street, the air bracing as I found myself lost in an unfamiliar maze of dimly lit facades. I did not know where to go, but I refused to let that stop me. The night was heavy with the cries of distant sirens, and instinct kicked deep within, pushing me to conceal myself, to become the air. As I slithered into the shadows, I recalled the woman, her firm resolve, her courage in the face of adversity. Had she done what she promised? Had she drawn their attention away from me? A rush of guilt swept through me, an unshakable sorrows gnawing at the edges of my awareness. I couldn't dwell too long, I had to keep running. More footsteps approached, closer now. Breathing shallow, my lungs ached as I pressed against a cold brick wall, straining to hear the whispers of the night. This was not just about survival, it was about those I had left behind. The woman, my father, each weighed down by their own choices. I was not alone, but the strength of that thought felt impossibly heavy. As the footsteps faded into the distance, a flicker of hope ignited somewhere deep inside. I needed to reclaim my narrative. I needed to find the light barely breaking against the horizon, the one that promised redemption, truth, and perhaps even forgiveness if I dared. In the shadows ahead, I spotted an old cafe, its familiar sign barely hanging by a thread. It used to be a sanctuary of warmth and laughter, but all those memories were now wrapped in layers of pain and heartache. Still, there was something calling me back. This was where I would find answers, the kind that would unravel the tapestry of secrecy spun by my father and his allies. The steps that took me there were faltering yet determined. I pushed the door open, the wooden panel creaking in muted protest, as if the place itself was reluctant to wake from slumber. The air was laden with the scent of stale coffee mixed with something sweet, familiar yet unsettling. Hello. I called, my voice barely above a whisper. Silence enveloped me as I stepped further inside, the memories washing over me, laughter spilling from every corner, light flooding in with every sunbeam that captured the smiles of those I had once loved. Anger and sadness spiraled in my chest as I moved deeper into the ghost of what once was. And in the back corner, amidst the dust and shadows, I saw Thema, flicker of recognition igniting my heart. The woman, hunched over a table, her face hidden beneath the dim light. "You found me," she said, relief spilling into her voice as she lifted her gaze to meet mine. I was afraid my words tumbled as the tension spilled out, pain throbbing as hope began to lace through me. "You did what you had to do. Her voice held wisdom, understanding woven into every syllable that I left my father, I said, the confession slow, heavy with emotion. I don't know if I can forgive him. No, she replied, her voice firm yet gentle. Forgiveness is a journey, not a destination. It cannot be rushed. I was forced to consider all I had lost, the choices others had made for me. It left a bitter taste on my tongue, but there was something else too, a burgeoning sense of strength, community ignited between us, a shield against the encroaching shadows. That I need to know everything, I said, almost trembling under the weight of it. Before we move forward, before I can understand who I am, then let me tell you a story, she began, and in that moment, as shadows danced around us, I felt a warmth creeping in, an inkling of hope, a thread of redemption that promised to unravel everything I once thought I knew. That as her words wrapped around me, I clung to the feeling that perhaps, just perhaps, the path forward was not one I had to navigate alone. The impending darkness loomed large, but the flicker of dawn was on the horizon, and I could finally begin to see the flickers of change reflecting back through the heart of my own story. As I listened, a profound realization settled deep within me, a whisper that asserted itself louder than either fear or regret. I was not just a figment of my father's mistakes, nor merely a bystander to his choices. I was carving my own path, a voice woven with faith and resilience, the voice that had long been waiting in the shadows, ready to embrace its rightful place in a tapestry meant for more than mere survival, and perhaps that alone would be enough for me to face the ghosts that had haunted my every step, to confront the shadows clinging to the edges of truth, and to step into the light I had been bargaining for all along. It was then, amidst the gathering storm, I finally acknowledged the journey was not just about finding answers, it was about reclaiming all the pieces that made me whole and the strength to rise anew, ready to show the world what redemption could truly mean. In that moment, I knew nothing could extinguish the fire ignited in my chest. I was not merely alive, I was fiercely, irrevocably ready to fight for my story and the stories of those who would carry me forward into the dawn of a new beginning.